The idea is that human beings store information and process information holographically. In other words, we create multidimensional holograms in our heads. Now, while this may seem a little odd, one has to remember that there are about 86 billion neurons in our brain, and each of them carries information when they are stimulated from the cell body down the axon of the neuron to the dendrites, and the dendrites connect to a whole bunch of other neurons. In fact, they may connect to as many as 10,000 other neurons. So there is electrical activity in our brain. However, I started thinking some years ago, because I studied electronics when I was in the Navy, that if electric charges move down a neuron's length, anytime an electrical charge moves through space, it must create electromagnetic energy, electromagnetic fields. And as it turns out, a hologram or holographic image is created by a number of electromagnetic fields or light waves interacting with each other or interfering with each other. So as electromagnetic wave patterns interact or interfere with each other, they create what we refer to as interference patterns. And these interference patterns are actually a recording of whatever's going on in the brain at the time. Now, typically, there must be something to read the interference pattern, and that's typically a reference beam, a laser beam in terms of hologram produced by most other means. But our breathing rate, our heartbeat, as human beings are fairly regular, and they can act probably as a reference beam. So that as these electromagnetic interference patterns are occurring in our brain, they can be observed by our consciousness, whatever that is, and they can be recorded, stored as interference patterns. Just because the brain is made of cells doesn't mean that it can't store information. So as we process information with our nerve cells and create these interference patterns, if we want to remember something, we need to be able to somehow regenerate or stimulate those same wave patterns. And of course, if we see something similar to what we have seen before, it's going to tend to generate the same types of patterns, and those rhythmic patterns may in fact generate or regenerate patterns from previous experiences. So our whole life experience may be an electromagnetic interference pattern that's ongoing, and when certain types of things trigger patterns that are similar to the patterns that we have experienced before, we will remember what happened before. We will form concepts when a certain set of patterns occurs, like seeing a cat or a dog or a person. And we will remember quite well. However, we will have to be able to recreate somehow the same or similar electromagnetic interference patterns. And if we haven't paid close attention to what those patterns were like, we probably won't be able to remember them.